So Dereck Chisora defeats Edmund Gerber via 5th round TKO to become the new European heavyweight champion. This fight was fairly one-sided. Chisora came out early on, doing what he normally does, going to the body, throwing combinations, applying the pressure. Gerber, to his credit, stood his ground and he tried to counter Dereck Chisora on the inside. These guys were both toe-to-toe. Both trying to push the other one back, both trying to establish control. But Chisora was throwing more shots. Gerber's counters were good and he looked dangerous with his counters early on. He was throwing some nice counters that looked solid. But Chisora was snapping his head back with uppercuts and his body shots seemed a bit faster and crisper than Edmund Gerber's body shots. And as early as the 3rd round, Dereck started to overwhelm Gerber a little bit. The body shots really were starting to get to Gerber. He started giving ground and it looked at that stage that this was a foregone conclusion and that Dereck Chisora was just going to steamroll this guy in another round or two. But in the 4th round, Chisora was caught with a right hand counter. Right, as I had observed in the 1st round, I made a comment. I posted a comment on my Facebook timeline and also in my Facebook boxing group. So anyone that's in that group will know. And I was saying that Gerber's counters still look powerful. So Dereck Chisora need to be careful. Because I saw in the Michael Sprott fight that Gerber is quite sneaky with those counters. And I think he does have a bit more power than his record suggests. And Dereck got caught with one of those counters. A right hand counter, bang on the chin. And Dereck was pretty badly hurt. I mean, so badly hurt that it took him a good minute, I would say, maybe more to recover from the punch. And that to me is alarming. That is alarming to me, but I'll go into that a little bit more later on in this video. But he managed to recover, or at least Gerber allowed him to recover from that punch. And he came back in the 5th and he started, he continued where he left off in the 3rd. He started putting Gerber under more pressure, going to the body. And he eventually managed to pin Gerber on the ropes and unleash a series of punches, which, prompted the referee to jump in and stop the fight. Now, I think the stoppage may have been a bit premature. Gerber wasn't exactly out of it, but Gerber really didn't want to be there. At that stage, Gerber had pretty much quit in terms of his spirit in the fight. He didn't want to be there and he didn't protest the stoppage. Even though it was a bit premature, Gerber didn't want to be in the fight no more and he didn't protest. So I don't think we can have too many complaints because it was a guy who didn't really want to fight anymore. So yeah, overall, I thought that it was a decent performance by Chisora. All right. I thought it was a decent performance. We saw his hand speed look better than usual. His punches seemed a lot more snappy and crisp than we're used to seeing them, because he's obviously down at the lightest weight he's ever been in his entire career. So we were expecting him to look a bit faster and sharper than normal. And we did see that. Combinations going to the body. I like the uppercuts through the middle. You saw improvements there. But at the same time, I'm concerned. Now, one thing I will say about his performance here, I felt that his performance was a little bit subdued, even though he did have bursts of, combinations where he was throwing nice punches. I just don't feel that he had the same fire in this fight that he had when he fought Robert Helenius or Vitaly Klitschko. To me, he wasn't fighting with the same kind of intensity as he was in those fights. But I think that was probably down to the fact that his good friend and cornerman, Dean Powell, passed away recently, and Dereck actually came to the ring in tears, which was obviously a worrying sign for Frank Warren. I mean, he said so after the fight. He said he was kind of worried to see Dereck so emotional before the fight. Dereck came to the ring in tears. His friend that's normally with him, for each and every fight, for every step of the way through his career, was no longer with him. He passed away due to suicide very recently. So Dereck was very emotional. And I think that kind of drained him a little bit, in this fight. And that's why I think he wasn't quite as intense as we saw him in the Helenius fight and in the Klitschko fight. So that was one thing. You can forgive that for the fact that he's just lost someone that's close to him. But the second thing that concerned me about this fight was the 4th round when Dereck Chisora got hurt. Now, it is true that Dereck Chisora has been buzzed before in previous fights, right? He got buzzed in the Sam Sexton fight in the rematch, and he got buzzed in the Helenius fight in the 1st round. But on both those occasions, he was only hurt for about 10, 15 seconds and he recovered very quickly. But on this occasion, he was hurt for a good minute, maybe more than a minute. And he was backpedaling all around the ring. And, you know, like I said, if there was a more ambitious opponent in there with him, Dereck may well have got himself knocked out. I mean, you don't want to advertise the fact that you're hurt like that. That's one big mistake Dereck Chisora makes. You don't advertise the fact that you're hurt like that, especially not when you're a pressure fighter like Dereck. You know, if Dereck was a fighter like, I don't know, David Haye or whatever, or, you know, one of those kind of guys who moves around a lot, the fact that you know, start moving around the ring after getting hit with a good shot might not necessarily advertise the fact that you're hurt, because you've been moving around a lot anyway. But for an opponent, for a guy like Dereck who's normally coming forward, to get hit with a good shot and then all of a sudden randomly start backpedaling all around the ring, it clearly advertises to his opponent that Dereck is hurt. You know, so he don't need to do that. You know, the art of boxing is to disguise your weaknesses. When you're hurt, you don't want to let your opponent know. You know, you don't want to let your opponent see any weakness. So you don't advertise the fact that you're hurt. That's one thing that people need to sort out with Dereck Chisora. His team need to tell him to stop doing that. You know, if you're hurt, come forward, push your opponent back, smother his punches. Don't let him get any shots off. You know, don't go on a run around like that. He may be able to get away with it against people like Edmund Gerber, who don't have the ambition to pursue him and you know, make him pay for it. But against a lot of other guys, he won't get away with that kind of thing. He'll get himself knocked out, you know, like he got knocked out against Haye. So I was concerned with the fact that it took him so long to recover from that punch. And even in the Mallet Scott fight, I know a lot of people don't notice these kind of things, but I noticed these things. Even in the Mallet Scott fight, I noticed that Dereck was a bit more cautious about getting hit in a Mallet Scott fight than he normally was. Now, some people may say, well, he's just tightening up his defense. You know, that's a valid point. But Mallet Scott was not a noted puncher. And there was rounds in there which I felt Mallet Scott was outboxing Dereck Chisora handily. And Dereck didn't want to take a risk. You know, normally Dereck, if he feels someone's outboxing him, as you saw against Klitschko, he'll take a risk and he'll throw the big shots at you. But I noticed in the Mallet Scott fight, he was a little bit wary of getting caught clean. Now that's normal for fighters coming back from knockout defeats, because obviously, you know, 2 fights before he was knocked out for the first time in his career by David Haye. So it's quite normal for fighters to be a bit wary about getting hit clean after they're coming back from KO defeats. So I can forgive him a little bit in the Mallet Scott fight, but this fight here against Edmund Gerber, to see him buzz that badly and to see him take so long to recover, I wonder if the David Haye knockout has affected his punch resistance for good. You know, I really do wonder, because that does happen to fighters. Sometimes when fighters get knocked out for the first time, the punch resistance is never quite the same afterwards. And as someone commented in my Facebook group, they said that David Haye also dented Enzo Macronelli's chin like that. You know, Macronelli never had an iron chin, but he certainly was able to take a shot better before he fought David Haye than he has been since he's fought, you know, since after the David Haye fight. So I'm wondering if the same thing has happened with Dereck Chisora, that his chin has been permanently dented. Someone did actually post an article. It was actually a scientific article. It was either in my boxing group or my Facebook timeline. I can't remember. I'll try and find the article and post it in the description below this video so you can read it for yourselves. But this article is basically a scientific article where they explain how once someone has been knocked out, it's easier for them to be knocked out again. Their brain is more vulnerable to suffering, you know, the effects of a knockout again once they've been knocked out the first time. Yeah, your brain can actually change physiologically after you've been knocked out one time. Yeah, and you know, I'm not surprised at all that this is now being confirmed by science, because this is something that I've been observing, you know, in boxing for decades. You know, when guys have been knocked out, the first time they get knocked out, their punch resistance most of the time never seems to be quite the same afterwards. And like I say, man, I believe that that's what's happened with Dereck Chisora. I don't think his punch resistance is quite the same now. I'm not saying that he's got a glass jaw or anything, you get me? But I'm not sure his chin is quite as good as it was before the Haye fight. And I find that a little bit of a concern. And again, you don't need to be advertising to your opponents that you're hurt. You know, you need to be disguising it and not letting them know. Smother your opponent, do whatever you have to do so he can't get off a follow-up punch. But don't advertise blatantly that you're hurt. You don't want to do that. You know, not unless your legs are completely gone and, you know, I mean, even when your legs are completely gone, you still want to grab hold. So, you know, it is what it is. So, yeah, I don't want to take away from Dereck's victory. It was good to see him finally get hold of the title, which he deserved the first time around against Robert Helenius. But I am a little bit concerned about his punch resistance now. I am a little bit concerned. Now, Dereck says he's going to get back in the ring. Back in the gym. He's going to take 2 days off and then get straight back in the gym and get his weight down even further, which, you know, he should definitely do. He still looked like he could lose a little bit more weight, even though he looked a lot better than he normally looks at 235 pounds. He could probably get down under 230, and his absolute minimum weight, I would think, will probably be around maybe 225. He'd be absolutely rock solid at that weight, and he'd be firing on all cylinders. That's probably his optimum weight. So, yeah, he definitely improvement in hand speed and sharpness, and even his technique seemed a bit crisper and better than normal, which is, you know, again, common when fighters lose weight. They tend to become more coordinated. You know, we've seen that with Tyson Fury. Since he's lost weight, he's more coordinated than he was before. People are still going to criticize his coordination to some extent, but he definitely looks more coordinated than he was when he was fat. You know, I've seen this so many times with fighters over the years. Once they lose weight, the coordination gets better, their balance gets better. It's not just their speed. So it'd be good to see Dereck get down even lighter than this. I even thought his power looked a little better in this fight. Certainly the uppercuts through the middle were really snapping Gerber's head back. So yeah, I like the improvements, but I don't know. I can't help but feeling a little bit concerned about his punch resistance now. You know, I can't help feeling a little bit concerned. And after the fight, Frank Warren said that he would like to match Dereck Chisora against Tyson Fury in the rematch. Since Tyson Fury is no longer interested in rescheduling his fight with David Haye, you know, it's a possible fight there for Tyson Fury. Maybe he sees Dereck Chisora as a stay busy fight. Maybe he might take on a Dereck Chisora in a rematch and see how it goes. Obviously, Frank Warren is interested in it. I'd be surprised if the Furies want to fight Dereck, because Dereck is still quite a way below them in the world rankings. So it would be a step down for Tyson Fury. It would really be a stay busy fight. And I'm not sure whether they'd want to risk a stay busy fight. You know, they'd rather fight, I assume they'd rather fight a highly ranked opponent, or maybe just try and go straight for a title shot against Klitschko. You know, so I doubt that fight will take place, but Chisora wants it, Frank Warren wants it, and you never know. It's boxing, it may happen. But drop your comments below. I know a lot of people disagree with me about Chisora's punch resistance. That's cool. You know, I guess we'll find out in the future. You know, we won't know until he fights again and gets hit hard again. But I suspect that his punch resistance has been permanently diminished by the Haye defeat. That's what I suspect. But, you know, people disagree. That's fine. Yeah, drop your comments below. Let me know how you felt about this. Who do you think Chisora should fight next? Do you think the Fury fight could happen? How low do you think Dereck Chisora should get his weight? Or do you think this is as low as he should go? Me personally, I think 225, 226 pounds would be his ideal weight. You know, that's another 10 pounds lower than he is now. Even 5 pounds lower than he is now, you couldn't really complain. So now that Dereck Chisora has lost all this weight, it's now just up to Odlanier Solis to follow suit and do the same. All right, he's seen that it can be done. So Odlanier, I know you probably don't understand English, but if you're out there, look at what Dereck did. All right, he got in shape, so it's about time you got in shape. You know, so yeah, hit me up in the comments. This Hatman, I'm out.